Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we're recapping the game in Detroit, the Phillies, an 8-1 victory, and why Bryce Harper has firmly put himself in another MVP conversation. It's going to be a fun talk about Bryce. Also, we'll look ahead to game 2 of the series and a monster pitching matchup. But I owe y'all an apology. My bad. We'll talk about why. Finally, this might be a weird thought, but that triple play. See, I can't even reference it. It felt special last night, more so than just 3 outs. We'll talk about all of it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I am Connor Thomas, your host. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for checking us out today. Please make sure you're rating and reviewing wherever you consume your podcasts. You're subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. Today's episode, it's brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code, it's all in lowercase, LockedOnMLB, for a first deposit match up to $100. Go ahead and check out our friends over at Prize Picks. And this is a great time to use Prize Picks because Bryce Harper is basically free money if you put him as part of your selection. He's been red hot, and the Philadelphia Phillies have followed suit. They're back as the best record in baseball, best winning percentage in baseball. This team is a monster, and they showed it last night in Detroit. We're going to get into the Bryce Harper conversation in depth. But real quick before we do that, right, I want to cover our bases, like we're trying to turn a triple play on Matt Vierling. But Aaron Nola was awesome last night. This is par for the course for the Phillies pitching staff, and that would be like if par for a golf course is normally 72. Par for the Phillies would be like 62. They've been so much better than the average. It's unbelievable. Par isn't even the right term because average does not exist with this team. They're all really darn good, at least the top 4 arms in the rotation. And Nola last night went 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 6 strikeouts, 90 pitches, 65 of them strikes. It was just a dominant performance by Aaron Nola in a string of dominant performance by Philadelphia Phillies starters. And something that was really great about Nola's outing was there was a point in the middle innings of that game where you ran into a little bit of trouble. It was either the inning or 2 innings after the triple play was turned, because that was a little bit of trouble, but that was kind of just one of those situations where you say, I've seen Aaron Nola in these spots before. I know the type of pitcher he can be. I also know that he could blow up sometimes, and that's kind of the downside of him, and it felt like it was coming. And you know what he did? He just bared down and knocked out some hitters and recorded some outs and ended up 7 innings, 1 earned. It's just everything seems to be falling in the right place for this Phillies team when you look at this season as a whole. Also, Michael Mercado made his debut last night. If you don't know who this guy is, get to know him. Rob Thompson has already said ahead of his outing last night, his first outing in his major league career, that they're going to use him potentially in more than just like mop-up roles. Now, last night was a mop-up role considering it was 8-1, but Mercado gets out there. He gets a scoreless inning. The family's there to see it. Beautiful moment. Orion Kerkering follows him up, only allows 1 hit in the 9th inning, goes ahead and shuts the door. It wasn't really that high leverage of spots. Once Nola was out of the game, this game was pretty well in control by that because of the offense. So that's the pitching portion. Now let's get to the offense and the man who led the way. Bryce Harper. He's just flat out unbelievable. And there are other guys who contributed. Alec Boehm went 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs. That cannot be lost. Boehm is a great piece to hit behind Harper because he protects Bryce. Part of the reason Bryce has been so good this year is because Alec Boehm has been so good batting cleanup right behind him. That's it. When you can protect Bryce Harper and you can't work around him, you got to throw him pitches. I mean, there's some other guys. Kyle Schwarber had 2 runs, reached on an error. Scored on another walk that he had as well. Like, he was good. Trey Turner 1 for 5 with a run scored. And then Nick Castellanos 1 for 4. Bryce Stott 2 for 5. David Dahl 1 for 2. Christian Pache 1 for 2. Garrett Stubbs 2 for 5. It was kind of everybody in the lineup. Brandon Marsh was the only one who was over. He was 0 for 5. Well, I guess Schwarber was technically 0 for, but got on twice. It's been a balanced approach from the Philadelphia Phillies offense. but there's one guy standing out. I promised I would have this conversation, and we're going to have it right now. Bryce Harper is going to be in the MVP conversation to the very end of the season. Like there's no way short of the I word and the injury bug. Like no, I don't even want to put that in the universe. You know what I mean, though. If he's healthy, he's going to be in this MVP conversation with guys like Shohei Ohtani. He deserves to be. He might deserve to be the front runner right now. And let me tell you why, man. This guy is batting .303. His on-base percentage, .401. His slugging, .577. 300, 400, 500 is a hell of a mark for anybody to hit. That is the line of like elite play at the plate. He adds another home run last night. He's now up there as far as home run titles. He's got 19. That's tied for 8th in all of baseball. It's just unbelievable numbers. 56 RBIs, tied for 7th in all of baseball. Is on base plus slugging, 977, 6th in all of baseball. His average, 303, 11th in all of baseball. And on top of that, he's playing Gold Glove caliber defense at first base. Yes, Gold Glove caliber defense. That's not an overstatement. What does he not do well? What has Bryce Harper done wrong? And even lately, the aggressive base running has started to pay off. He had a moment last night where he forced a double. Probably should have been thrown out, but the outfield was sleeping in Detroit. And next thing you know, it's 2 bases instead of a single. And that's the stuff that you say, okay, if we're going to get that, we'll accept the times where he tries to swipe an extra bag and gets thrown out. I mean, that's just kind of the player that he is. He is, for lack of a better expression, balls to the wall at all time. And that's why we love Bryce Harper in this city. That's why this team loves him. It's why he's made such a difference with this franchise. And it's why he's in the conversation for another MVP. I mean, he is the guy in baseball right now. He's one of the hottest hitters on planet Earth. Bomb home run again yesterday. He's been doing this consistently. He's probably going to win Player of the Month for the month of June. He already won it for May. It's just May or April. He's already won one of them. Like, he's just been absolutely dominant this season, and it's been quiet. I was having this conversation today with a couple of guys at the radio station over at 97.5 The Fanatic. We're talking about, could this be a quiet MVP season for Bryce Harper? And I was like, well, it's about to get pretty darn loud, was my first thought. But you don't really think about Bryce Harper right now as, oh, okay, he's in the MVP conversation. You might be starting to, but he's kind of been this guy for a month and a half, 2 months now, and he was pretty darn good even before he raised his level to the elite level we know he can reach. So my question is, why has it felt like kind of a quiet MVP season? I think I have a great answer, and it's not just Phillies. It's Philadelphia sports. Think about like the recent MVPs in Philadelphia. The Eagles have never had one. The Flyers haven't had one for a minute. The Sixers, Joel Embiid. The Phillies, the most recent ones were Ryan Howard and Jimmy Rollins in back-to-back years in 06 and 07. And I think about it, and I'm like, 06, 07, one of those teams didn't make the playoffs. One of those teams made their way in, but they weren't like, neither of those Phillies teams were juggernaut teams. They were good teams, really good teams, but they weren't like top of the league great. It wasn't undeniable greatness as a team. The same with Joel Embiid on the Sixers when he won the MVP, not this most recent season, but 2 seasons ago. The Sixers were good. They weren't like top of the league great. This is the first MVP in a long time in this city that I can remember, if Bryce Harper wins it, and we got a long way to go. But this is the first like MVP caliber season where the team is also consensus the best or one of like the top 2 teams in the sport. And that's what I think it is. I think that Bryce Harper is the ringmaster of the Philadelphia Phillies circus. But rather than other MVPs in the city having no side acts and no one else around him, not that it was nobody, but no one to this caliber, Bryce Harper is surrounded by guys like Alec Bohm, monster season. 4 starting pitchers that are unbelievable. Other guys that are really carrying their weight on this team. Like, the Phillies are just such a juggernaut overall. You almost miss the individual greatness of some of the players because there's so much to attract your attention. Focus in on Bryce Harper, folks, because what he's doing is special once again. There's a chance that what he's putting together right now is better than his 2019 MVP season. A real chance that that's the case. MV3, that campaign's going to start again. Bryce Harper had the post-game interview on the TV broadcast on NBC Sports Philadelphia. He was getting MVP chance on the road in Detroit by the Phillies faithful that stayed and hung around the away team dugout. I can't put into words how special this player is for this organization. Like, to me, Bryce Harper is the greatest player I've ever seen put on a Phillies uniform. I was born in 94, so anyone who was like, oh, Mike Schmidt, Steve Carlton, all these guys, I know. Yeah, I'm not saying he is the greatest Philly. I'm saying he's the greatest one I've ever watched. And he's got so much more in the tank. And that counts for guys like Utley and Rollins and Howard and, man, other guys on this team, Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, guys like that. Look at the pitchers, Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels. You could look at any player at any position in my lifetime that the Phillies have had, and I can make an argument that Bryce Harper is better than all of them. And he's doing this with a supporting cast that's unbelievable. It's just another feather in the cap of this Phillies team. It's credit to Bryce Harper for being the leader on the field that we know he is. And who beats the Phillies when they're playing this way? Certainly not the Detroit Tigers, who the Phillies jumped on them. I know they struck out a bunch in the game. The Phillies did. It doesn't matter when you score 8 times, when you score 4 in the first inning, when you take Casey Mize to town off the jump. That is just what this team does. They win, and they win mechanically, automatically. It is amazing to see what the Philadelphia Phillies have done. Coming up tonight, they got a bit of a tougher time, though, with who they're facing on the mound. So we'll discuss that. I owe you guys an apology. I know, I spaced. We'll talk about what that means as well, and all of that as we look forward to Game 2 of the series up in Detroit against the Tigers. Oh, and I absolutely have to talk about this because there's trouble out there, folks, and Tax Network USA can help you. Here on Locked On Phillies, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. It might be the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, which Phillies are destined for that. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season's over doesn't mean that the IRS is just, they go into hibernation. No, they're not going to stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. You don't want that stuff to happen. That is life crippling. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Maybe you owe taxes. Maybe you have complicated matters that require tax planning. You know something that's coming up. Or you finally hit that parlay and you got stuff to file winnings that you don't know how to correctly file. We'll call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And you can see the link in the bio for this episode or the description of this episode, I should say, for more details on our friends over at Tax Network USA. Also want to tell you about Supply House. You can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, electrical, all those products online that you need for that type of work. They got a really easy-to-use website. It's packed with helpful resources and the latest product info, so you know what you're getting, how to use it, help you get the job done right. That's their main goal at Supply House, and they go above and beyond to make sure it happens. You can shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, and you can get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. You might need help with an order. Well, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. No machines or recordings. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free TradeMaster program. Every TradeMaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, discounts on every order. Why wouldn't you do that? Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Go ahead and check them out. Okay, Connor goofed. I apologize. I saw a couple people commenting on yesterday's episode. I'm going to blame it on. So I threw out my back doing laundry, and I've been popping Advil like they're sweet tarts. So let's just blame it on the back pain distracting me. But somehow I got mixed up on the pitching matchups on the games. I gave this whole intro to this Tariq Skubal, Ranger Suarez matchup. And last night, obviously, was Nola taking on Casey Mize. My apologies, podcasters. We make mistakes too. So please forgive me. Find it in your hearts to do so. I will talk about that matchup tonight, though. And here's why this gets really interesting. I'm glad last night kind of happened the way it did because the Phils won comfortably. But what was, if you could take a negative out of last night's game, it was the strikeouts, man. They struck out a bunch. Casey Mize, season high in strikeouts for him. He was monstrous. I mean, the Detroit Tigers pitching staff, if you just look at like the ability to strike out the Phillies, it was kind of anomalistic considering Phil's had 8 runs on 15 hits. But when you look at the amount of strikeouts, the Phillies struck out 17 times. 27 outs in a baseball game, folks. That means 10 of their outs were put in play. 17 of them were via the punch out. Now, was there a large zone last night? Yes, it was a little bit questionable. I wanted to put a tweet out about it, but the Phils were so comfortably in charge of that game. It's like, do you really need to comment on the umpire when you're up 8-1? No, but I do think that had a little bit to do with it. I also think it had something to do with the matchups that you had going into this series. You faced the Diamondbacks, and the last two pitchers you faced against the Diamondbacks, and Slade Ciccone and Tommy Henry, both had ERAs above 5. They both looked rough, and you had a position player pitching at the end of game 2 in that series. Been a couple days since you had seen top-level pitching, and Casey Mize is okay. He's not top level pitching. The guy you're seeing tonight in Tarik Skubal, a tough lefty, he's a guy that is as top of the top as you get, and so is Ranger Suarez, who he's matching up against. So my thought process on this is you could be seeing another heavy strikeout night for the Philadelphia Phillies in Detroit. Now, if it comes with 15 hits and 8 runs, that's fine. And this might be a night where the long ball, you would say, has to help you out. Skubal's given up 8 home runs this year, so he hasn't been immune to the long ball, but the 2.5 ERA he boasts, the .97 whip, and most importantly, 105 strikeouts and 90 innings pitched. This is a guy who can punch him out. For example, Ranger Suarez has only struck out 95 guys in 92 and a third innings pitched. So the strikeout, definitely a weapon for Skubal. He's near the top of the top for the American League Cy Young Award projections, and he's going to be really good. So the biggest question tonight is not whether or not Ranger Suarez can shut down the Detroit Tigers offense. You know he can. Ranger Suarez can shut down any offense in baseball, and he basically has this year. That's why he's got a 10-1 record and a 1.75 ERA. But it's more, can the Philadelphia Phillies hitters solve Tarik Skubal? It's going to be hard. As a lefty, the Phillies are immediately at a disadvantage anytime a lefty's on the mound. Not disadvantage compared to the other team, but they're at a disadvantage compared to how they hit against righties. They're just better against righties. I tell you this all the time. So I don't know. I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say worried about tonight's game, but how impressive will it be if you can go out there and beat Skubal tonight and show, hey, it's not just beating up on bad teams and bad pitchers. And we're not just seeing position players pitch every game. No, you're seeing one of the best this season in baseball. And something else to think about. This is next level thinking. This is what you get here on Locked On Phillies, right? This is why you need to subscribe to the YouTube. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, rate and review wherever you consume your podcast. Not only have I been crushing my predictions lately, but next level thinking, Tarik Skubal is going to get moved. The Detroit Tigers are not heading for the postseason. Sorry if you're checking in on this as a Tigers fan to hear my thoughts. You ain't heading to October, more likely than not. And that means that it's selling time. And that means a high-level arm like Skubal is going to be a guy that people look for. Now, he's only 27, so I understand Detroit wants to hang on to him. But if, I don't know, let's say the Atlanta Braves come calling. Let's say the Baltimore Orioles come calling. Let's say the New York Yankees come calling. Let's say the Los Angeles Dodgers come calling. I'm just naming contending teams. I know those are basically all good pitching staffs, but you can never have too many arms. If you're going to see Skubal later in the year in a big spot, it's awesome to get an opportunity to face him now, to kind of get your feet wet against what he could be. So that's certainly the matchup to keep an eye on. This guy against the Philadelphia Phillies hitters, and how do they drop those strikeout numbers? If you strike out 17 times tonight, you're probably not winning this baseball game. If you keep it under 10, probably got a pretty good shot. And what you want to do is something they did against Mize really well last night, both by that large first inning where they scored 4 runs, and also by, well, I guess you can call it working the count. Strikeouts take up more pitch count than like a one-pitch ground out or anything. Obviously, that's simple math. But tonight's got to be a similar strategy. Not the strikeouts, but working the pitch count. The faster you can get to this Tigers bullpen, the better overall chance you have to win the game. And you also have to hope that Ranger Suarez is as good as he's been all year. Seems to be more of a likelihood than unlikely, but it's still, you never know, any given day, stuff can happen. This is must-watch TV tonight. Last night was a good game. You saw some special things. We're going to talk about one of them coming up in the 1-3-5 triple play, which, how in the world does that even happen? But tonight's going to be special in a way that if you love good pitching, you're going to see some really, really good pitching in tonight's contest. So that's your preview of Game 2 of the series. The Phils with a chance to win yet another series. It's just, this team's a machine. But they're going to have to put in some work to do it. Coming up next, we're going to talk about that 1-3-5 triple play. And the thought I had about like special things happening around this Phillies team. When you've watched a bunch of baseball, you've seen a bunch of sports seasons, you kind of get a feel about teams. I'm certainly getting a feel about the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll talk about it in a second. First, though, I want to talk about my friends over at Prize Picks. You know Prize Picks. You better. They're America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They've got over 5 million active members. You can make it 5 million and one. Well, I guess over 5 million. But you know what I mean. Join the party because there are a lot of ways. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. You're not playing other players. There's not this whole leaderboard, and if you're good but not at the top, some dude gets all his picks, you lose all your money. Like, no, that's not what you're doing. What you do is you just put together a couple of picks, 2 to 6 player stats, and you pick more or less on them. Baseball's rolling right now. Now, hockey finished up last night, so baseball is really the only game in town when it comes to the pro sports leagues that you think of. But there's a bunch of different things that you could go through. WNBA, e-gaming, like esports, all of that stuff's available in Prize Picks. Go ahead and check it out. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Tonight, look at the righties for the Phillies. Maybe Nick Castellanos stays hot. Take more in his hits. Ranger Suarez, take more in his strikeouts. Detroit's offense isn't that good. There's 2 picks. That's all you need to find winnings. It's super easy. So go ahead and check it out, and they'll even cut you a deal. You download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. You get a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. A Benjamin, just in your account matched just for putting in that promo code. There's no reason not to check out Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. Folks, it's really that easy. All right, let's wrap up by talking about that 1-3-5 triple play. And I feel bad it had to happen to my boy Matty Carshield. Matt Vierling at the plate. No outs. Runners on first and third. Feels like a spot in the game where Tigers might break through, score a run, make this interesting. A hit there. Aaron Nola's in trouble. Do you get the pen up going? And all of these thoughts are racing through your head until Aaron Nola breaks Matt Vierling's bat, gets a soft line drive back to him, throws the ball to first base, doubles off the runner at first. McKinstry, who's on third for the Tigers, must have thought it bounced. I don't know if it had something to do with the bat breaking. I don't know if it was because Aaron Nola so as a righty, you fall off to the left side of the mound. He caught it kind of to the side of his body. So he might have like screened McKinstry a little bit. Might have been hard for him to pick up on where he was standing. But whatever the case may be, he just keeps running home like it's a ground ball. So the ball goes to first, and Bryce Harper yells out to Alec Bohm, Garrett Stubbs pointing. All the Phillies knew it. They throw the ball across the diamond. It is a triple play. Like, I'm trying to think of the last time I saw the Phillies turn a triple play, and the last one I can remember. Let me know in the comments what's the most recent triple play for the Phillies, because the last one I remember is Eric Bruntlett's unassisted triple play to end the game against the Mets up in New York. And that'll be played forever as one of the more improbable moments in all of sports. What I'm about to say next, it's not a catch-all. It's not, if a team turns a triple play, they're special. No, there's randomness to it. The Angels turned a triple play last year. That wasn't a special team. The Braves turned a triple play last year. They had a magical season in the regular season. Then we knocked your ass out again. But bottom line is, it's not just like binary. It's not if triple play, then this. But the Phillies have already felt like a special team, right? You get the feeling. You watch them. You're like, this team is different. They have things fall their way. They make things happen their way. And then you still, in any sport, to be this good, a little bit of luck has to be involved. whether it's guys staying healthy, the injuries not being as severe, winning a game here or there on a lucky bounce, a lucky error. And like errors aren't really lucky. Guys have to make the mistakes, but you know what I mean. The great teams play well, and then they also have things kind of start to fall their way. And when you realize things start to fall their way, you get this feeling that you can't turn off, right? You can't turn a blind eye to it. When I watch the Philadelphia Phillies play baseball this year, they just feel to me like the best team that I've ever seen put on a Phillies uniform. Sorry, like if that's too hasty for you, you better get on board sooner rather than later, because every step of the way, it seems like more and more is pointing that direction. But championship teams, special teams, all-time great teams have this aura about them. I think aura has become like this new Gen Z buzzword that's used on like TikTok and stuff like that to say, oh, this aura that this person has. I don't even know this. I'm a millennial. I'm old now. But the Phillies have this aura about them. And when I saw that triple play last night, I couldn't help but think, that just doesn't happen. How do you get a ball hit right back at you and the guy on third doesn't see it and you get the guy at first? How does Arano know to go to first there? Is just a shock reaction because that was what was in front of him, because again, he's a righty. He turns off the mound to that side. You have time to go over. It was in a spot where there were no outs and a interestingly pivotal part in the game. I still think the Phillies win that game, even if that triple play doesn't happen, but it's easier to say after the fact. I guess my whole point in all of this is, don't you feel like this team's destined? It's too early to call anyone a team of destiny. It is. But when you see special things happen regularly for a team like this that's already this good, it's hard not to let your mind race. And I wonder if I'm being too hasty. You can let me know if I'm being crazy in the comments. Like, did that triple play mean anything more to you than just 3 outs? Did it give you the feel of like this team just has special things happen around them? Because that's how I see it. Now, not to make this feel like a dumb premonition, I felt it last year during one game, and you could probably guess. Yeah, the Michael Lorenzen no-hitter that also had like Nick Castellanos' career 200th home run, that had Weston Wilson homer in his first major league at bat after so much time in the minors. Like, that game felt magical. Now, that team didn't quite feel as magical because of the slow start to the season. We knew they had some deficiencies. We knew the bullpen was questionable with Craig Kimbrell back there. The offensive approach proved to be not good enough when push came to shove. And I don't know, they slumped at a bad time. I don't need to relitigate the issues with the 2023 Phillies. But that type of game makes you feel special about a good team. This type of play makes you feel even more special about a great team. So I don't think I'm overstating it. You get those feels. And I'm a big trust my gut guy. When I start to feel that the universe is on the side of a team, I can buy all into that. And I know there's probably people out there that are a lot more pragmatic, a lot more logical than me. They're saying, what is this idiot talking about? They turned a triple play. It was a great play. It was rare. It was the first time it happened since like the 1920s. A 1-3-5 triple play has been turned, not just by the Phillies, by any team in baseball. So it's like, that's how rare that type of triple play is. There are only 2 triple plays all of last year. I believe this is the first triple play in the MLB this year, but it's not the mark of a great team. So why does it make me feel like it's further proof that this Phillies team is different, that they're special, that they have something magical happen? It might be too early in the year for this, but sorry, I can only tell you how I feel. And that's how watching that play made me feel. It's good to have these feelings. Because even if I'm wrong, you know where it's born out of? The fact that we have a darn good baseball team and they just keep winning. Will they do that tonight? Well, we'll have to see. But tomorrow we're going to have a breakdown of that on our next episode. We're also going to, because I haven't talked about it yet, we're going to, in one of the next 2 episodes, get into the Taijuan Walker discussion about him going on the injured list. It's something that I haven't had a chance to catch up with because we've been doing so many recaps of great wins by the Philadelphia Phillies, but we will discuss that as we draw closer to what's supposed to be his next start. Tonight, though, the focus is on the pitching matchup, the specialness surrounding this team, an MVP caliber stretch by Bryce Harper, and my goodness, can the Philadelphia Phillies win another series? Thank you so much for checking us out. Again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure, like I asked you earlier, if you like this show, if you like what I do and the content we put out, please rate and review wherever you consume your podcast. and subscribe to the YouTube. All of that really helps me out, helps us out on Locked On Phillies. So thank you for tuning in. If you could do that one extra step, I would thank you so much more. But the most I can ask for on top of that is just join us tomorrow for our next episode. Root on the Phils hard, and I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.